Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a new edition of the Daily Debate. In tonight's show, we're going to be focusing on a new project, the future of Egypt for agricultural production. Now, this is a new production, a new project that will be held in the north coast, really, near the Daba nuclear power plant. It's going to be taking a space of about 1 million fidans. We're going to be focusing on the prospects of such a project, the aims and the challenges that lay ahead with such a mega production and vision for the agricultural sector here in Egypt and the Egyptian economy as a whole. But before we start doing that, let's check out some of the stories making the news today. And we'll start off with President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi inspecting the harvest season of Egypt's future project in the Western Desert on Tuesday. Presidential spokesman Bassam Radi said the project is part of the giant national project dubbed the New Delta, established to plant 1 million fidans along the Rud al-Farag New Daba axis. The project, which is located near the Sphinx and Burj Al Arab airports and the Alexandria and the Dakhila ports, aims to facilitate the delivery of production materials and final products, as well as attract investors in the agricultural field. It also aims to develop the area of the northwestern coast by establishing agricultural communities with proper administrative mechanisms, as well as industrial communities based on the outcome of agricultural products. The project is expected to provide over 200,000 new jobs opportunities. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi also confirmed today that the climate change is considered one of the biggest challenges that cause huge losses to the African continent, which result in severe weather conditions, especially water scarcity in some countries, including Egypt, in a manner that threatens the future of the African people and affect their security and stability. During his participation in a video conference of high-level meeting organized by the African Development Bank, President al-Sisi stressed on the significance of enhancing the climate change finance, which is offered by developed countries to developing ones for the sake of adaptation and building capacity to face the climate change's negative effects. The head of state asserted that Egypt is to abide by all efforts to adopt the climate change at the domestic, regional and international levels. In this respect, the President elaborated that enhancing efforts at the domestic level can be realized through forming an integrated national strategy on climate change, depending on adaptation as a key axis. He added that efforts can be consolidated at the regional level through launching an African initiative for adaptation in 2015 and at the international level through a joint presidency with the UK and joint coalition to adapt with the climate change that is a key cornerstone for supporting international adaptation efforts. President al-Sisi expressed Egypt's desire to host the 27th round of the UN Climate Change Framework Conference within the framework of its relentless efforts for the sake of the continent's interests at all levels. Also was taking place this week in Egypt. The Egyptian Center for Thought and Strategic Studies is holding a conference, a human rights conference regarding the post-coronavirus pandemic period that will be held on April 8th. And joining us here right now, actually over the phone, to shed more light on this conference, we're joined by Dr. Bilal Manzour, researcher at the Egyptian Center for Thought and Strategic Studies. Dr. Manzour, can you hear me, sir?
Yes, I can hear you.
Dr. Manzour, first of all, now, this conference regarding human rights post the coronavirus pandemic. Now, what is the aim? What do you want to achieve? What does the center want to achieve by holding this conference?
Well, actually, let me first clarify that the issue of human rights has always been a crucial topic for the research interests of the Egyptian Center for Strategic Studies, as the center has provided multiple and various studies and research regarding this topic, and also has participated in the Universal Periodic Review in November 2019 in Geneva, in the Human Rights Council. In this regard, the Center has seen that there was this agenda launched by the United Nations on the Human Rights Day, and it put the issue of human rights at the center of post-pandemic world, saying that the coronavirus has had negative repercussions on societies regarding the equality, which has enforced the propagation of the pandemic, issues of discrimination, a lack of solidarity. In this regard, the United Nations Human Rights Day, it has focused on these issues that has to be at the center of a post-pandemic world. As the ECSS is interested in this topic, it has decided to hold a conference tackling this issue and tackling this general framework launched by the Human Rights Day, while hosting various people from the Egyptian government. We have 5 ministers. We have also representatives of international organizations. We have also experts and members of specialized councils of human rights and women. The day it will, the main aim of this conference, one of the biggest aims, is to open a discussion, a platform for having a dialogue, a public sphere to start having various theses and topics and viewpoints regarding the issue of post-pandemic world from a human rights perspective. Then we are expecting through the 3 sessions of the day to hear various theses and viewpoints from the speakers and also from the local and foreign media. We have also participants of NGOs who are so much interested in this topic, as well as guests from foreign embassies of the missions in Egypt. They were all engaged in a wide scope of discussion, of open dialogue, that we will treat the agenda of human rights traced in the Human Rights Day, and also issues of mutual interest between the center and those various guests.
Dr. Manzoor, now this conference is really tackling human rights post the coronavirus pandemic. Now, you've mentioned one thing that resulted maybe out of as a result of the pandemic, and you mentioned discrimination. Now, what else can we add to discrimination? Are we talking also about providing healthcare to the most needy brackets in the African states? Are we talking about domestic abuse or domestic violence that took place because of all the lockdowns? Are we talking about, is now the standard of reaching or fulfilling human rights is actually pretty much under the microscope, especially after the pandemic?
Yes, of course. We will track through the discussions in that day the 4 main pillars addressed by the Human Rights Day, which is addressing inequality and ending discrimination of any kind, forcing and fostering participation and solidarity, and then we have sustainable development. Those 4 pillars, they address political, economic, and social rights that has to be addressed and has to be at the center of post-pandemic world. Starting from today, we don't need to wait until the coronavirus ends. We have to start it from today, as the negative repercussions various societies around the world. We have seen that there are some societies we couldn't even expect that might face such things, and we have also other societies that things were intensified and negative repercussions were fostered and doubled due to problems in the social structure in these societies. We have also, in the 3rd session, we will have presentation from multiple civil society organizations, Egyptian ones, and we have also African and European ones that will address what they have accomplished, what they tried to do, what they tried to address, and their future strategies regarding the pandemic and what has happened or hit their societies politically, economically, and socially.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of people also lost many jobs and took huge pay cuts. Are we also talking about trying to secure and provide people who lost their jobs, or maybe even trying to pursue careers after finishing their education, having to fulfill this basic human right of earning an honest living?
Yes, of course. We have this part. It will be addressed. We have also the right to education. We have also the sustainable development. We have the right to life. We have the right to health. We have a political grand framework, which is equality, which is solidarity, which is participation, which is ending any kind of discrimination. Various topics will be tackled through the day. We will have the presentations from the NGOs that I have addressed before. We will have talking about the right to work, the right of labor. We will address also the main negatives and main problems that have been addressed or things that have came into surface that were not present to other societies. We're talking globally. We're not talking merely on a regional or local level. Mm-hmm. We're saying that Egypt is also a part of this post-pandemic world. And we, as the Egyptian Center for Strategic Studies, we're trying to provide an Egyptian viewpoint, an Egyptian thesis that can contribute intellectually, politically, economically, socially on all these aspects, and to engage and have an interaction with the international debate. We're also saying that this conference is the first of its kind in the Middle East. Mm-hmm. And it's a heated debate nowadays that grand events, also we're talking in the language of political science, when there is a big event that takes place and there is a reinstitution of every concept, structure, the societies. All of these debates will be tackled through the conference. We're not saying that it's the first conference of its kind. We're saying it's the first conference of its kind. However, it's not the last one. Yes. It has to be into a series of other dialogues, open discussions between various levels, various interests and backgrounds on all the levels of the Egyptian society. And the issue of human rights is one of the most crucial and important issues to the Egyptian people themselves before the state.
Most definitely, sir. Dr. Bilal Manzour, the researcher at the Egyptian Center for Thought and Strategic Studies. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, we'll turn our focus to our topic in hand tonight. Let's check out this report regarding Egypt launching the new Delta project on an area of 1 million fidans. Let's check out this project, this report, and we'll be right back.
President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi has announced a new national project called New Delta that covers an area of 1 million fidans, aiming to strengthen the Egyptian state's strategy in the field of forming and establishing new agricultural and urban communities characterized by modern administrative systems, and that include industrial complexes based on agricultural production. During his meeting with the Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli and the Minister of Agriculture and Land Reclamation, Sayyid Al-Qusayr, Presidential Advisor for Urban Planning, Major General Amir Sayyid Ahmed, as well as the Director General of the National Service Projects Organization, Major General Mustafa Amin. President instructed the implementation stages be combined into one and the planned timetable to be condensed. The head of state was updated on the details related to studies conducted by the research teams in these specialized bodies, including the Ministry of Agriculture. The studies focus on the areas of land plots in the northwestern coast at the Daba axis. It's been proven that these lands are ready for agricultural reclamation for the giant national project New Delta, which covers an area of 1 million fidans and includes within its scope the Egypt's future project for agricultural production. Minister Qusair stated the national project is distinguished by its prime location near the ancient delta. He said a specialized team in the field of land studies in cooperation with the faculties of agriculture from Cairo and Alexandria universities have intensified their efforts to implement 3 phases of field studies in 3 months from January to March to study the available land for the project. He noted the study, which is conducted on an area of 688,000 acres, revealed that more than 90% of the area was suitable for agriculture. The minister also indicated the project is located on the Rod al-Farag axis. The Mustaqbal Masr project and the New Delta together span over an area of 1 million acres. The integrated project is based on the optimum utilization of non-conventional sources of irrigation water, where a giant plant will be established to treat agricultural wastewater. The project also includes residential complexes and other various facilities, internal roadworks as well. The New Delta project aims to enhance the state's strategy in the field of forming and establishing new agricultural communities, which would have modern administrative systems.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and starting off with our focus tonight on the topic, we're joined here in the studio by Ms. Sherin Ramadan, the Human Capital Development Consultant. Ms. Ramadan, thank you very much for joining us.
You're most welcome, Yani.
Now, first of all, under the auspices of President Sisi, the New Delta project for agricultural development is launched with a time frame of 2 years. That's over 1 million fidans near the western north coast, close to the Daba nuclear plant. Now, first of all, why did we choose this area in specific to have the New Delta project? And generally, what do we want to achieve out of it?
Right, okay. Well, the project comes as part of the national project for integrated agricultural development. And together, the Delta project, together with the Future of Egypt or Mustaqbal Masr project, comes, as I said, as a part of this national project. They both would constitute 1 million acres to be cultivated. Why we chose this area is it's a very strategic area, to be honest, because first of all, it's near the old delta, which is known to be a very productive land. And also it's close to ports, it's close to road networks, it's close to, so it will be easy to distribute the products, the agricultural products, whether within Egypt or even export to outside Egypt. So it's very strategic, the area, and it's close, as you said, to the Dab'a, and it's at the northwest side of Egypt. But a very strategic place, and it's a very strategic decision to choose this part specifically to do this huge mega project.
Yes. And is the land there ready to be cultivated?
Well, it is after they have tested, because they have been doing, as mentioned in the report, they have been doing the initial testing, which was supposed to be done on 3 phases. And it started in January 2021, finished in March. They did it in 3 months. They made it in 1 stage. They intensified their efforts to be able to... allow me first to say that the fact that this project was meant to be implemented in a 10-year span, but as per the President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi's recommendations, it was squeezed to a 2-year at most. He said it has to be finished 2 years at most. So what's been happening is people have been intensifying their efforts to the maximum to be able to deliver this project in 2 years. So the testing phase, which includes, experts and specialists from the area of land studies and also from the Faculty of Agriculture in Cairo University, Alexandria University, etc. They have been conducting testing on the land in the area of data collection and actually analyzing the suitability of the land itself, the climate where the area is, and the availability of water sources, etc. And they have done this in 3 months. And here, let me say the importance of squeezing the timelines, because what has been happening and what the President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi said from day one when he joined the presidency, he has been addressing a couple of issues that we are facing, and one of them was the rise in population. And how quickly the population is rising and how slow the resources are. It's not accelerating enough to join the rise in population. So what is being done today is we are trying to squeeze the timeline so we can be able to at least satisfy the need of the rising population. And this has been done in so many areas, whether in education, in training, in you name it. But still, the food is a crucial issue. It's a very strategic part. So the food, the agriculture will help in providing food security and being able to satisfy the population's need for strategic food commodities, at least.
Well, you're saying that this project was originally planned for almost, it would take 10 years. Now it's being shortened to 2 years, which is a recurrent theme by the President, always trying to squeeze time, as you've mentioned. Now, by squeezing the time frame for such a project to 2 years, 1 million fidans, cultivating land. Now, what sort of challenges does this project pose for the Egyptians and for the ministry? Is it basically mainly the sole responsibility for the Ministry of Agriculture? Are there other ministries joining in such an initiative? How will this work in dealing with any challenges laying ahead?
Right. Well, first, let's say that there are so many areas involved, because this project is different from just adding the land for agriculture. It's a total integrated solution, like it's an urban community along with an agricultural land, along with an industrial area as well, to serve as like the food commodities that comes out, that we can be able to industrialize what's coming out of the agriculture. So of course the Ministry of Agriculture, the urban development, the roads, and there's also a road network. There's so many things that we will talk about in details when it comes to the project. So many areas are involved. But let me also say the fact that the timeline has been squeezed is really, really challenging. Because when you when the timelines has been put, you put in consideration so many steps to be taken, and in order to squeeze the timeline like that, that means that people are going to be working day and night. I mean, you will need more manpower, you will need more time, you will need more, I don't mean more time, I mean more working hours.
Yes.
And you will need more capital as well, more financing to the project. And this comes as a part, as I mentioned, when President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi said, we have challenges. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. These are the challenges we're facing. We have rising population, we have lack of resources, we have to meet the rising population, we have to educate our youth, we have to develop our human capital. But he was not saying this to make us feel desperate or that we cannot solve these problems. But he was mentioning this, he was putting this on the table, so we know that we have to do unprecedented effort. We have to do extreme effort in order to stabilize, in order to meet the requirements so we can start excelling. So what is happening in terms of squeezing the time is people are going to have to work double and triple the efforts that's required from them.
Yes. Well, you've mentioned that it's not just about cultivating the land, it's also having the factories and the production lines. So we also have civilian complexes, we're having residents, we're having hospitals, churches, mosques, schools. So it's practically a new city that will be established. So it comes along with all its challenges, and one of the main thing is the human capital. Now, you being a human capital development consultant, now, is this an area, the agricultural field, is this an area where we have an abundance in human capital, because the agricultural sector has been throughout history one of the Egyptian strong points, or does it need still further development, further training, further relocation of a lot of the labor? How will this work?
Right. Well, allow me first to say, let me tell you a story. The other day I was with a very nice taxi driver, and I knew from him that he comes from Tour Sinai, right? So I told him, well, that's brilliant. I mean, everybody would love to go and visit this place. And I told him, it must be so beautiful. What made you come to Cairo and leave this beautiful place? He said, because there are no sources of income, there are no jobs, there are no, because the infrastructure is not allowing for this to happen. So everybody was going to the city to try and make a living, to try and make ends meet. Even those who are working in agriculture, they send their children, if they want them to get education, they will send them to the city. If they want them to get a job, they will send them to the city. And they end up being in the land alone, and they end up not being able to cultivate the land on their own, and they end up selling it, or they end up building on it, etc. So the whole thing is having the full infrastructure will definitely attract the human capital. If you have a fully fledged solutions for people, you have the educational facilities, you have the hospitals, you have the road networks, you have the job opportunities, the industrial job opportunities, the agricultural job opportunities, etc. And all the services that are going to be given is going to create job opportunities as well. I mean, the educational facilities will attract educational staff, etc., etc. So these solutions, and I'm very excited today to talk, because the first time I came on the daily debate, like a few years back, we were talking about the importance of developing our human capital, and this needs to be done, this needs to be done. We want to shed the light on the importance, blah, blah, blah. Now we are talking about things that are being done. Now things are being done, fully integrated solutions are being actually implemented on ground to face this issue. As for the thing that you mentioned about, do we have enough manpower for this? We do have manpower in the agricultural sector, but in this project specifically, we are going to be using the latest technology, the latest techniques, the latest equipment even. It's going to be, it's a mega project. It's not only adding the number of acres or making more land for agriculture, available for agricultural. agriculture. It's also that we're going to add the technology. We're going to be adding a technology that allows you to reclaim these lands with the best techniques, with the fastest speed, because it's a strategic project. It's not only to satisfy the need of adding land. It's to be able to satisfy the population in terms of food, to achieve food security, to add job opportunities. And you know how the corona pandemic has showed everyone in the world that we need to be self-sufficient, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
When things were closed, we were not able to get food from outside. So when you are self-sufficient, this is a very important issue, apart from creating job opportunities, etc. As I mentioned, because of having the latest technology and because of implementing new techniques in this area, there will need to be a lot of training and a lot of vocational adaptation for those who are going to be working in such a project.
Yes.
Even if they were already in agriculture, they will need to be adapted to the new techniques and the new technologies in agriculture.
Yes. Well, as Ms. Ramadan actually mentioned, the new Delta project really aims to achieve self-sufficiency in terms of food and supply for the Egyptian population. Let's check out this report and we'll be right back.
Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli said the new national project for integrated agricultural development of the new Delta aims basically to achieve food security and confront the increasing demand for foodstuffs given the constant increase in population. The Premier said the timetable of the project needs to be tightened in order to start establishing new agricultural and urban communities applied through the latest administrative systems. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi issued directives to the bodies concerned to merge the implementation phases into one stage and intensify the timetable to promote the state's strategy in the field of establishing new agricultural and urban communities characterized by modern administrative systems. The Minister of Agriculture and Land Reclamation, Saeed Al-Qusayr, said the national project of creating a new delta spanning over 1 million fidans will be carried out over 2 years. He pointed out the area would be cultivated with strategic crops like wheat, corn and vegetables. He said the cost of reclamation per fadan is about 200,000 Egyptian pounds. He said it would take place according to the availability of additional water sources and by studying climate and results of detailed studies of the land. For his part, Naeem Masilhi, the advisor to the Minister of Agriculture, explained that the project aims at accommodating the increase in population inside the Delta area. He noted that the mega national project was supposed to take up to 10 years to be completely finished. However, the President directed the project to be finished within 2 years. He described the project to be unique, especially that it was designed to resemble the old known Delta of Egypt.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, continuing our discussion with Ms. Ramadan. Now, you've mentioned that this project aims to secure and reach a self-sufficient level of food and supply. Now, having a development in the western North Coast, also working simultaneously on developing Sinai Peninsula, and also working on developing the thousands of villages, reimagining and reinventing the countryside of Egypt. Do you think that with all of these working simultaneously under a really tight time frame and schedule, do you think that by then, in a few years' time, and by a few, I mean very few years' time, we'll be able to be self-sufficient in terms of food and maybe then export?
Well, actually, that's exactly what we're trying to reach. And it's part of, as we always mention, the agenda of sustainable development, the Agenda 2030 and 2063. Basically, what you're trying to reach is to become sustainably developed. is in all areas, not only in food security, not only in all areas, in economy, education, human empowerment, women empowerment, human capital development, to have developed human or manpower, that we can be self-sufficient in the manpower as well. We don't have to go for experts from outside, etc., and to achieve food security, to have job opportunities for our youth, not having to go abroad for finding careers and job opportunities. So what basically we are aiming as part of the global agenda or the local agenda 2030 is to reach this sustainable development. And as you mentioned, the project has been working simultaneously, and not only in the agricultural development, as we have been speaking before about the entrepreneurship initiatives and solutions, integrated solutions to cover this area. We have been talking about empowering women. We have been talking about educational projects, the new administrative city, the agriculture. So we are working simultaneously on so many pivotal areas when it comes to sustainable development of the country. And in every sector, we have been squeezing the timeline, because we're actually kind of racing time here. Because what has been happening in the past decades is that small projects were being done here and there. Every time the population rises, so you make a project to satisfy this number of more population, and by the time this project is finished, you find the population has been doubled. So what needs to happen now is we need to be ready. We need to be ready for the coming population. When it comes to agriculture, when it comes to food, that's why we are squeezing the timeline. So by the time we're having more people, you would be having enough food for them. Also in education, for example, by the time we're having more people coming into educational sector, we'll be ready with more schools, with a better educational system, etc. And the job opportunities and the entrepreneurship, the more people coming into the labor market, will be ready for more jobs for them, etc. And what I'm really excited about is how the projects are kind of it's an integrated and inclusive solutions. It's not only solutions that are not linked together. One of the problems that we used to have in the past decade as well is that we will be working in agriculture in total isolation from the urban development, for example. We would be working in education in total isolation with the career and the training and vocational training, the job opportunities, etc. But now what's happening is that we are kind of having inclusive solutions that covers, like for example, this mega project. So allow me to talk more about this project. Yes. So the whole project, it's started with the Future of Egypt project, which has already been implemented now, which is cultivating 500,000 acres. And the Future of Egypt project has 9 power stations. It has thousands of center pivot irrigators. It has a power station, sorry, we mentioned yes, 9 power stations with a capacity of 250 megawatts. We have also 200 kilometers long internal power grid. We have 500 kilometers long road network, whether main or subsidiary roads. So you can picture from this an integrated solution for, as you mentioned, it's like a new city. Industrial zone to serve the, as we mentioned, the food commodities. So it's like an integrated solution you'll find, and as you mentioned, the manpower, the labor. How can you attract people to go to the delta, to go to the northern, to the northwest of Egypt, is by having a better quality of life altogether. Not like before, okay, I'll go to have a work in a remote area, I'll do my job and I'll have my family in the city, I'll be going back. No, you'll have a new quality of life for the labor. You will attract citizens, and you will also release the burden from the old delta area.
Well, talking about manpower and human capital development, now also the Ministry of Immigration and Planning have launched this initiative, Nawarta Baladak, welcome back to Egypt, for those living abroad who lost their lives, lost their jobs, or they want to return to Egypt. They log into the website, they fill the applications and the forms, and so they can be reintegrated within the workforce and the employment sort of life here in Egypt. So when we're embarking on such a huge project, the New Delta, do we also look for such an initiative to help our resources of human capital? And when that happens, do you feel that they would need extra training, or would they require less training than the already existing manpower in the country?
Right. Well, training is a constant effort that has to be done. Even if you work in an industry or in a sector or whatever, if you go from a facility to the other, you will have to be kind of oriented on the place of work. If you work in a bank, for example, and you go work in another bank, you have to take orientation training because every facility does things differently. You know, the core technology or the core expertise, as we say, is definitely more or less the same, but the logistical part and of how a place does things is kind of different from a place to another, from a country to another. The laws, a lot of things has to be oriented. So it depends whether the level of expertise they are in. If you're hiring technological people, engineers, etc., they do have the technicality, they do have the expertise, but they will have to be oriented to the new ways of doing things, to the country, to the methodologies that are put in place for the projects they're going to be starting. As for the agricultural staff, as we mentioned, if we're going to be using the typical people who have been working in agriculture, definitely we're going to have to familiarize them with the new technologies because, as I said, we are bringing the top-notch equipment and techniques to be put in place for this project so we can be able to achieve this project in less time and speed, etc. So they have to be familiarized with that. They have to be oriented how to use these techniques and these technologies and these equipment. So training is actually a constant effort.
Yes.
It never stops.
Yes. Well, Mr. Ramadan, because we're running out of time, but this is a very promising project, as you've mentioned. But what would you say are the main challenges that you see might pose themselves during the process of actually establishing this new delta? Or do we have enough experience with building new cities? I mean, we're having the new Alamein city, the new Mansoura city. We have a lot of probably short but extensive experience in building new cities along with the new administrative capital. What challenges do you feel that lay ahead for these 2 years in establishing the new delta? Or do you feel the challenges we've already overcome with our experiences in building new cities previously?
Right. Well, the main challenge that we used to have in the past, I would say, is the lack of synchronicity or between institutions. That was always an issue in the past decades, let's say, in Egypt, is how you synchronize between the Ministry of Agriculture and the Ministry of Urban Development, the Ministry of Education, etc., etc. And I think this thing has been put in consideration when it comes to having integrated solutions, as we mentioned. So if we get the institutions to work together and cooperate into having the vision for integration and the vision of integrated sustainability for all services, this is one very important challenge that we have to overcome. Also, the other challenge is two things. First is to get the right labor, to attract the labor and the people contributing in such mega projects, and to get them to know the buy-in in this, and to get them also to be willing, because if we have a will, we have a way. They have to be willing to exert the maximum effort they can so so we can be able to execute the projects in the timelines, the squeezed timelines as mentioned. The other thing also is getting the public in general, the Egyptian people in general, to tolerate the kind of difficult times we're going through now, because we have to squeeze everything at the moment. I mean, people sometimes feel stressed because of the logistics of the taxes, etc. But this is all going to pay off when all the mega projects actually is executed and implemented, and it starts paying off. We will understand why we've been put through this process of stressing, whether financially, whether work-wise, etc. So when it pays off, people, but I hope people actually have the patience until it comes. So these are mainly the challenges that will be faced.
Yes, and hopefully, ladies and gentlemen, these challenges will be overcome. Egypt embarks yet again on another national mega project establishing the new delta for integrated agricultural development in the western north coast. We're going to be following such a process that should only take 2 years according to the set schedule by the President. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this edition of the Daily Debate. But before we go, I'd like to thank my very distinguished guest, Ms. Sherin Ramadan, the Human Capital Development Consultant. Ms. Ramadan, always a pleasure having you with us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, please stay tuned for more coming up on Night International. I'm Hani Saif. Thank you for joining us.